Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting of Monday, November 25th, the Select Board of the Town of Guilford in the state of Vermont. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to recognize our public. Hello, public.
Hello.
And we'll call you up in order of your appearance. The rules of procedure, which govern the way that the public and the Select Board interact, are on the table here.
They're in the sign up.
They're in the, they're in this, with the sign-up sheet?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have any questions, you can look at those rules of procedure. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I have none.
And I have one,
Okay.
which is a letter from, we don't have to put it in now, do we, or? Do
We should just describe what it is.
A letter from Dana Barry asking for a letter of support for CC4G's establishment of an early childhood education center on the Delta campus.
Okay.
And that letter of support needs to be sent in before our next meeting.
Okay, we'll add that to the end of new business.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda?
I have none.
All right.
I noticed that not everyone from my cemetery commission is here, so if they don't get here before the conservation people, then we could put that.
Okay, great. And have you, I'm assuming that everyone has read the minutes of the October 28th meeting? And do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
You could actually do a motion for both sets of minutes if you don't, if there are no edits needed for either of them, you can approve them.
All right.
I would be comfortable making a motion to approve both minutes.
Thank you, Gordon. Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion?
About who will second it? No,
Let
Michael.
Michael second it. He's very quick.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, here are both the minutes, please sign them.
And now, a general update on the highway.
Sir Daniel,
Dan,
I'm busy yakking over here. Hello,
you're back.
everybody.
Oh, he looks so
he's
rested.
back.
He looks rested.
I am rested. We're still doing culverts and ditching, and of course we had some snow we plowed this weekend, so sanding. About all. Got one truck that's down, and we lost the transmission. I thought it was a transmission, but luckily it was a transmission line, so one of the 1 tons. So we're get that fixed up this week, and we should be pretty good.
Great. Thank you. And now on to
May I
new.
make a comment, Mike?
Oh, yes, please.
As a member of the public who benefited directly from the road work that has recently been done, I'd like to express my admiration and appreciation for the superlative, artistic, and very professional work that our road crew did.
Bravo.
Well, thank you. That's just an everyday job. So.
I would say that. I have another comment coming.
Could I make another
Yes,
comment
please.
about that? Because they were doing a lot of work on Carpenter Hill earlier in the season. And I stopped one day and just said to the road crew, not only do you do good work, but you do good aesthetic work. They get these rocks that they get out of there and put in such nice ways. So, thank you, thank you.
Another thing to the list too is that culverts on Carpenter Hill are finally done.
Yeah, but,
We're gonna take the hump out of the humps tomorrow.
yay,
We're gonna
okay.
get them filled in so there'll be a lot more level.
Excellent. Thank you,
But,
Dan. Now
Came
on
out
to
well.
I think
cannabis
we'll-
legislation.
Yeah.
They should last.
Public is still chatting.
Sorry, we were still talking about the culverts on Carpenter Hill.
I
I'm sorry.
understand. Now we're on to cannabis legislation.
I'd like to be educated.
We were notified by VLCT that in the session that is supposed to be beginning in January for our state legislature, that there is very highly likely to be legislation surrounding the legal dispensation of cannabis. And there are quite a few people, VLCT is one of the groups that are concerned about the language of this legislation. They are neither for nor against the commercialization of cannabis. However, they feel that municipalities within the state should have the authority and the control to be able to regulate that within their own community, and that it should not be at the state level. And they're concerned that there's some additional language going to be added that would take that away from towns. So they are requesting.
There's also
every-
the question of the tax.
Yes, there's also a question about whether or not municipalities can tax the sale of cannabis and cannabis products. At the moment, that is not allowed. The only tax would be a state tax on cannabis. And they being VLCT, are in favor of municipalities being able to tax these products.
And sharing in the general taxation of the state.
Yep.
They would, they're suggesting that there be a formula where municipalities or towns that have cannabis sales get a certain amount of the tax, and then those that don't would share in a certain percentage of the whole pot, as it were. Myself.
So, and the last thing that's in there is the language about where these businesses can be established is a little bit vague at the moment, and VLCT wants towns to be able to create their own local regulations as to where these dispensaries can be. So they are requesting a resolution that supports a municipal authority in this regulation, and they're requesting that of every town. And so it is up to our select board whether or not they support this resolution. You want to read it?
Yeah, I will, I'll skip the whereases and go right to the resolves. Okay, resolved by the town of Guilford, 1, that the town city only supports legislation legalizing a taxed and regulated cannabis market that adequately addresses all aforementioned local considerations and concerns, and we just told you what those were. 2, that the town city supports a local cannabis tax of 5%, with 70% of the revenues derived from the local cannabis tax retained by the host community of a retail establishment, and 30% pooled and redistributed to municipalities that do not host retail establishments. So, does everybody get that?
So you're saying that if a community decides not to have a retail establishment, they're still going to benefit from the fact that there are sales in the state of
That's
Vermont.
correct, yeah. And that's really the thrust of, I think, what this resolution is. And thirdly, that the town city calls upon the state administration and legislature to provide communities adequate time and clarity in law for local officials and community members to discuss the local implications of such a market, and to update, clarify, and establish local regulations and policies accordingly.
So I'm not sure I'm clear on what that last part meant. I mean, is that addressing having the, for lack of a better word, merchandising of cannabis in that community? Or just,
That the state provide communities adequate time and clarity for us, for towns, to discuss the local implications of.
So have a say.
the local implications of taxation though, or the local
Of sales.
implications?
Of
sales.
Sales.
Okay.
And to update, clarify, and establish local regulations and policies accordingly.
So providing the towns with a little more power
Yeah.
over
Okay.
Yeah.
where these establishments
So
are.
again, I'm just, since I'm new, I'm out of it. When is this going to take, when is Vermont going to be able to
It says.
open cannabis?
Well,
It-
it's going to be, it's already passed the House and is going before the Senate in January.
I see.
Um,
So then they would set a date for when it would.
Yeah, it's usually July 1st unless they
When they-
determine it to be later, but it's usually July 1st is when it would take effect.
Okay.
You have a comment or a question of the audience?
Yes,
How does this pertain to towns that have no zoning or land use regulations?
I don't know.
I mean,
Does
there's
anyone
no,
know?
for any commercial enterprise in Guilford,
Right.
they don't have to come to the town. So it seems like it's not applicable.
But when we have liquor licenses and tobacco licenses that the town has to approve on an annual basis, this would probably fall under the same kind of thing, Eric. You know,
That's one
So-
aspect, that is
okay.
correct.
That there would be a regulation sent down. While there's no zoning, there's still that requirement that would probably
Yes,
come down
because
from the state. I would
the
imagine.
legislation currently has language in it that there will be a state licensing process. similar to alcohol and tobacco, like Gordon just said. The other thing I did just want to note is this is not something that VLCT just created out of thin air. They actually put a lot of effort into this and a lot of research into it, particularly communicating with other state governments and local governments in other parts of the country where it already has been legalized and already implemented, and finding out some of the issues that go along with it, as well as the positives that have come from it. So it's not just something that they made up, thinking that this is a good idea for Vermont. They actually have data behind their recommendations.
This resolution, by the way, is a resolution supporting municipal authority in a commercial cannabis system. So that.
So it's just the commercial aspect of it, not the actual
Exactly.
growing aspect. That's in a
Right.
whole other section
No,
of the
this is just
process.
about benefiting from the taxes and having time to discuss the implications on a particular town.
I know there's some troubles in those.
Is it clear what a dispensary is?
Well, I can read the whole thing. if you-
Because I'm thinking of other products derived from cannabis, and are we talking about that, or just?
Recreational marijuana.
Recreational marijuana.
Whereas a
That's it.
regulated and taxed
So-
recreational cannabis marketplace will affect communities across Vermont. That's the first whereas. I can go through them if you,
I mean, like candy made with CBD in it, like we don't have to get
That's
involved with that?
No,
that's not cannabis.
No, that's not
No,
cannabis.
okay.
yeah.
This is recreational marijuana and recreational marijuana products.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
CBD and THC, two different
Yes?
things.
may I speak?
Sure.
BCTV cameraman, Ian Keel, I'm not a Guilford resident. I did have the opportunity to record a Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting where it was discussed about potential zoning issues related to this commercial cannabis market in Vermont. And I think they were discussing, I think the state in this legislation is defining the different aspects of the market. So let's say a town with zoning might choose no dispensaries in this area, but you could have a manufacturing, So I would just say if you wanted to look at the legislation, you may see, the legislation may start to define which different industries there are. So I know that the Brattleboro Planning Commission was sort of trying to get ahead of this in terms of their issues with zoning. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So do I have a motion to have the chair of the select board?
We actually need two motions. One will be to, if you support that, that's one motion, then the second would be to
To
have the
chair
chair
sign
sign
off.
it.
So do
I'll
I-
make a motion to sign off on this resolution, supporting this resolution.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I need another motion.
And I'll
now.
make a motion that our chair sign off on it
Do I
for
have-
the select board.
Do I have a second?
Aye, or I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is passed, and thank you very much. Cemetery Commission update.
Okay, so happily, there are two other cemetery commissioners here. Refer the board and the public to the charming article in the Guilford Gazette about hard decisions made in Maplehurst Cemetery. As you may remember, those of you who were here last year, one of the major projects of the Guilford Cemetery Commission was taking down and planning to rebuild a fence to protect the cemetery from snow plowing issues and also to have a better definition. And so the article details how the commissioners took down the old fence, and once the fence was taken down, we looked at the stately granite markers and we decided that it looked better without a fence. And so Jerry Baker took the lead on the fence removal. We had a lot of support from Jim Tomanuk. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Anyway, on that work. The granite posts were straightened and some that were in the woods were brought out. And so it turned out that, that we decided to use old-fashioned looking chain between the posts to make a graceful barrier for the cemetery. And I think Jerry was researching the chain, and he found some that would cost about $2,000 with the attachments, and that will be less expensive and more attractive than the fence itself. And so we have a few more aspects of it, but I thought that maybe Allison and Eric would want to address them.
Where's Maplehurst?
It's, Maplehurst is along Route 5, and Maplehurst and behind it, Maplehurst is the cemetery that abuts the road, and that's the place where we're encouraging Guilfordites who want to be buried in a historic town cemetery to be buried. And behind that is an older cemetery called Elmhurst. And also the town owns some land in between so that we can continue to bury people there. I mean, people from Guilford can be buried in some of the other historical cemeteries, but unless they have a pressing desire to do that, we encourage them to pick that more convenient cemetery, because burying people in the others, it's a delicate environment and it's a little tricky. So, Allison, did you want to add something?
Well, I was just going to...
Do you want to come up and
Oh, sure.
Yeah, why don't you and Eric
introduce
both-
yourself?
Pictures.
Come join.
Yeah. Well, you covered a lot of the things I was going to
Oh,
say.
I'm sorry.
But that's quite all right.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Alison McRae.
Hi, Allison.
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to briefly say what we actually do.
Oh, well,
we've
we
done.
Go ahead.
I just say that it's really fun being on the Cemetery Commission, because all of our meetings are out in the field, as it were. So, we always start off the year just kind of going around the different cemeteries, either in groups or just singly, and just seeing what kind of winter damage there was, removing any big branches, and just taking note of whether we're going to have to come back and take care of something else that's kind of pressing. But as Veranda just stated, our priority really has been Maplehurst. We spent a lot of time last year there and continue to do so this year. I think we pretty much at this point straightened all of the stones there, and that was quite a big project. As Veranda said, we've been working on the fence. But otherwise, really, the only other cemetery that we really spent time in was the Billing Cemetery, and I don't know if you know about that, but it's a really lovely little cemetery, and it's out at the end of a dead-end road that is just south of Packer Corners.
It's near Tree Frog, if anybody has been up to the organ concert or any of that. It's abutting the land of Don Guttenplan and Maria Margaronis, and it's set back up on a hill, and it's just a lovely, peaceful place.
That where poplars love to grow.
Right.
Saplings.
Yes, so I actually I've got some pictures here. I took some and Eric took some. So this is kind of what it looked like when we got there.
Wow.
As you can see, it was really overgrown, lots of saplings.
Mind if I take it and pass it around?
Yeah, do. Yeah, pass it around.
That's the before.
That's the
This
before.
is the before.
Gordon, would
Do you want to
open up?
describe?
Yeah, it was
Thank you.
kind of some bushwhacking.
Do you want to show
went on.
the after, and then we
Yeah,
can
well,
look at
and I got
both?
two afters.
Oh, goodness
So-
sakes alive.
Yeah, and then there's this one as well. So, you know, we did lots of
Wow.
cutting the saplings,
Amazing.
pulling big weeds.
Wow.
And then Eric came along with a weed
Wow,
whacker
that's
and finished the
spectacular.
job. And as you can see, it's
Well done.
It's absolutely,
Boy, that's incredible.
I think it's my favorite cemetery that we take care
Oh,
of.
it's
just beautiful.
Boy, what a gorgeous place.
Yeah. But really, that's pretty much the extent of what we've done this year.
Well, thank you for your good work.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, actually.
And Eric, did you want to?
Yeah, another activity, when people do want to purchase a plot in one of the town cemeteries, we go out, pick the spot and prepare a deed we convey burial rights, not actual real estate. And this year, I just prepared 2 deeds in the Carpenter Hill Cemetery.
Oh,
But
that's a
next
beautiful
year,
one, too.
there's a few more in Maplehurst that I'm working on.
Is there a single price for a deed all across the town, or is it?
In the town cemeteries, it's $400
For a plot?
plot.
Old well values. You
It is a
can't beat
value.
that
No.
anywhere. I mean, and there
If I
isn't
didn't have
any
one, I would
annual
jump like
upkeep.
that.
It's
That's
And
incredible.
there's
really,
a maintenance fee isn't required.
We should revisit.
Not required, but a lot of times, people will
Make
make
a
a
generous
donation to the town for care of the
That's
cemeteries.
wonderful.
And this year, actually, one of the parties who bought a plot in the Carpenter Hill Cemetery was not a resident of Guilford.
Oh,
But it was a couple, they live in Halifax, right near there, and were attached to that cemetery. So I just mentioned that people often make a donation, and they were more than happy to make a $200 donation.
and is the
for
price the
upkeep.
same for out-of-town folks?
Yep. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
difference.
it's not a tourism thing.
No, it's, like I said,
so two newish things have come up for us. And one is that Barry Aleshnik, who is a trustee of Christ Church Cemetery, approached me, and he's certainly worked in Algiers a lot with Eric, about how the trustees of that cemetery are really aging out. He's the main person who's in charge of doing the nuts and bolts of keeping that cemetery going. And so one of the things that we're going to be discussing this year is possibly a transition plan where we could at least support Christ Church Cemetery more, or see about even taking them under the wing of our cemetery work. I mean, it's a big cemetery. On the other hand,
it's an active cemetery.
it's an active cemetery.
Which we don't have experience in.
Right, that's true, and they also have an endowment, but they need person power, and so we'll be looking at that. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that I went to a workshop on green burial. I don't know what you all know about green burial, but it's really burial without embalming, without vaults. In general, shallower graves, everything just done as simply and naturally as possible. And we have no regulations in any of our historical cemeteries saying that people have to be in vaults or embalmed or anything like that. And so I wanted the Cemetery Commission to be a resource for people who are either planning to die sometime and want to know about that. Well, it's a topic I find interesting. And also to share these resources and to, it would be completely compatible even with the layout of the Maplehurst Cemetery to have basically shallower graves that are below the possible animal depredation, but still in the sort of composting zone. And, I mean, within our town plan, there are all these areas of trying to be ecologically sound. And so the Cemetery Commission wants to do our part, which is really just the way people used to be buried before the Civil War. So, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Okay.
Cemetery Commissioners. Now on to the
Thanks for
Conservation.
those great
Thank you.
commissions, Allison.
From the Cemetery to the
Pictures
Conservation.
are amazing. I love the chain.
I like the chain too.
I think that's a great idea.
Inspired.
Yeah.
Inspired.
Well, it's so enjoyable to have one plan that was, we were all aimed at, and then just,
That's great.
we had to admit to each other that we wanted to drop the fence idea.
All right, moving right along.
Okay.
Could you introduce yourself? And we'll get right on to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so here are members, some of the oldest or the most veteran and one of the newest members of the Conservation Commission. I'm Linda Hecker.
Karen Murphy.
And Steve Szynski.
And we're
Welcome.
here to give our semi-annual report on what we've been doing lately, and we have been very busy. I'm going to first hand it to Karen to talk about our ash tree inventory.
Yes, and first of all, thank you to Peter for applying for and getting the grant to help us out with this. There was a training session by Elise Shadler of the Agency of Natural Resources in July to explain this is all, the inventory is done using software. And as you are out in the field, you can plug in what you're looking at, give its condition and that kind of thing. And so off we went, and we surveyed 37 of the 67 miles of town roads this year, which was, to me, amazing that we did that.
Yeah.
We are hoping, of course, to finish this whole thing in the spring after the leaves come out again. I think you could safely say we spent about 150 hours doing this.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Including the training and organizing and surveying.
Yeah.
And I have to interject here that I was working with Linda Lemke on our nearby roads. And once we just turned to each other and went, if this weren't just another beautiful October day, we would be miserable. But as it turned out, we were quite happy doing it.
It's good to get up.
It was really good to get out. And we
Yeah.
saw lots of things that you just normally wouldn't see because you're just driving by them all the time. So that was interesting to me too. So we recorded approximately almost 1,800 trees. We recorded.
And every single tree gets counted and evaluated.
Evaluated, right?
And I printed this out, just, and maybe I think this is really interesting, it's a horrible picture, but the results of the software can be manipulated by the folks.
Yeah.
And so that's like the roads and the tree counts, and this is sort of, I don't know if this is interesting, I'm a tech guy, so I like,
Yeah.
this is what the software collects, it's like the date and time and tree condition and who did it. I don't know if that's interesting,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's just sort of, you're going along the roads, how far back are you looking? or-
Just-
we
Try to do very good at it.
Yeah.
Look at town.
We tried to stay within the help me with
Right
this,
of way.
Danny, right of way of the road.
Okay.
We do look at things like power lines and utility lines. We don't have to do anything about them, these are just the town, but still we needed to record them. Sometimes we looked at things that were just off the town right of way, just because they were overhanging the road as well. And that's our big concern, because when the emerald ash borer gets here, we all think it probably will, ash trees do not do well. They break off haphazardly and can be a road hazard or even worse. So we looked at those as well.
Yeah, so maybe it's the big picture, why are we counting all the ash trees? It's because we expect them all to die within the next 10 years, and it's tragic, but probably that's what's going to happen based on what's happened in other part of the country. And really, the reason we're doing this, adding to the statewide database and marking particular priority trees that look like they're going to be a hazard when they're weakened, like they'll fall on the road or a house or a town property, so that we can work with the road crew and they can proactively plan for what's going to be a big expense to get these trees taken down safely once they begin to deteriorate.
That's
And so
very
we're
good
hoping, instead of
work.
having to do all the trees at once over 3 years, which is going to be very expensive, we're hoping to kind of identify the trees and work in advance for them. Because once they get infected, it's about a 5-year cycle till they die. And you have a couple of years when they can be taken down by conventional means. But as the deterioration advances and they become brittle, you need specialized, more expensive equipment to come and take them down with cranes. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
Were there any trees, it looked on that list that fair
Yeah.
was the best condition.
Well,
No, we have a lot in good
Yeah,
condition.
we-
Oh, you do? Oh, I didn't.
That was just the top of the list, is 1,700.
No,
Yeah.
there's
Oh.
over 800 that were in good condition.
Oh.
yeah.
That makes you feel any
No,
better.
that makes me feel better.
But there are a lot
But-
of reports.
But even though we don't have the emerald ash borer, we noted that a kind of alarming number of the ash trees are not in good condition. And there are other diseases that are impacting them.
I agree.
And
Which will make them really weak then.
yeah, so, yeah.
And from what I understand, sorry,
Yeah,
they're
no,
particularly
please.
dangerous as dead trees. They're a little bit, they behave differently, they get very brittle and
Yeah.
crumble.
Yeah, which,
Snap.
but if we take them down before they're to deteriorate, we can use the firewood locally. So there are a lot of advantages to working proactively on this project.
This is all, we're all doing this inventory in preparation of asking you guys for money.
Well,
Or for the town road.
the road crew's gonna ask for money for
Isn't that-
contracting tree removal.
We just don't want it to be a surprise.
Yeah. So
Oh,
other.
I have another question, which is, are there any other towns that you know about, through other conservation commissions, let's say, who have sort of made a plan for the tree removal and the firewood and
They have
everything?
not. We're ahead of all the other local towns in this
Wow.
particular, and I know that from going to Wyndham Regional meetings and from our work with the joint regional conservation commissions. They're kind of looking to us for guidance.
Anything else to report?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Steve, did you want to?
No, you're
Okay.
good.
So we're also doing our natural resource inventory. We're in year 2 of what will be a 3 or 4 year project. We've hired Patty Smith. She's mostly worked in the Green River watershed, and she's working her way east across the town. Our main role so far she identifies plots that she'd like to investigate on foot based on maps that suggest that there's a valuable resource or natural community, but we always need landowner permission. So we've been contacting the landowners, and we have so far contacted 38 landowners for permission. 23 have agreed, 3 have declined. The rest, we haven't been able to actually hear, we haven't heard back
Permission
from.
to enter the property?
For Patty to
To
walk
look
the
at-
property and take notes and identify important natural resources. And we're also talking about the format that our report will take, which we hope will be online, interactive, and available for everybody in town, but especially things like the Planning Commission and for landowners to think about important parcels to conserve.
Terrific.
Yeah. We learned how to use another fabulous app called iNaturalist to record sightings of plants and animals in our community, and they don't have to be exotic ones, a beaver, a wood
A
dove,
robin.
yeah. They just wanted, just so we have a baseline reporting that these do exist in Guilford now, because they might not be here 20 years from now.
Also, this is a worldwide app that goes, yeah, I know, it's global, it's really
Yeah,
neat.
it's a very neat app. We're working with the Planning Commission, so we'll be working on the natural resource section of the updated town planning. Can somebody tell us when the finalized version of that plan is due? Because
It needs to be approved before June. They hope to have a draft form by town meeting day, and then there's approximately a 2 to 3 month process that it has to go through between several public meetings, and then it has to come before the select board for review, and then the select board has to approve it.
okay,
Okay.
so we better get cracking on that.
Yeah, you better.
This year, we not only have to revise from 5 years ago, but we have to incorporate Act 171, which is about forest connectivity. So we are looking to other towns for models, and we'll be working with Wyndham Regional on that. We are also planning a public and school-based workshop on coyotes with Kim Royer of Fish and Wildlife, because somebody in town had an unpleasant encounter with a coyote, and that sparked a lot of interest. Karen is, and especially has been, various members of us have been planning and leading monthly nature walks for seniors with Guilford Cares. And we're still maintaining the Weeks Forest Trail, and we are working with the Recreation Commission on various recreational things like trail development and forest-based activities. And our members are also very active in the Green River Watershed Alliance, the Wyndham Connectivity Collaborative. I'm on the Natural Resource Commission committee of the Wyndham Regional Commission. And so we're kind of connected across the region to other conservation advocacy groups. And next month we'll be joining them at the semi-annual joint annual meeting, which will be held in Marlborough. So.
I'd like to add one small thing about these senior walks. Out of these wonderful senior walks that Leah Gessner basically organized for us from Guilford Cares, but out of it came this idea to have senior explorations, rather like, for those of you who know about it, the Four Winds program or the prior ELF program, and there's the director of Four Winds Nature Institute is running a grant for us to be a pilot program. There was a lot of interest in our seniors and getting outside and seeing places.
Fantastic.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Any questions? It's all good work. Thank you, Conservation
Great work,
Commission.
yes.
Done
Thank
it
you for
before.
the
We have been busy, yes. Yeah.
Okay, on to Peter, if you would tell us a little bit about this Guilford Central School generator.
Well, I think we'll let Jared talk about it. since
Jared's
that
here,
was
yes.
It's like Jared's gonna come and join us.
Chief,
Is Sean not able to join you?
John had to go to a meeting at the high school tonight. He apologizes. He got notification of it last night, so, yeah. I said I can try to,
We got you.
I can try to get, work my way through it. Anyways, Jared Bristol, Fire Chief. The reason I was coming tonight was to start the ball rolling about, we did a great job here getting a generator put in. That was excellent. Thank you very much, by the way. That's going to be huge before you guys
Right.
get into it. When we do have an event or just day-to-day stuff, you'll notice it. Anyways, being on the other side of things, working for the power company, storms are getting more intense. It's taking a little bit longer to get power back on, which gets us to our next thing of why I'm here is the school. We don't have a generator there at this point. They looked a while ago and it was really expensive. And I meant to have estimates tonight, but there was one we were still waiting on. But the ones we did get so far are a lot cheaper than what what they got in years past. The thought behind all this was, one, to benefit the school, especially when they're in session, obviously, because the kids only have, I guess John told me some sort of facts before I came tonight, because he wasn't going to be here, that they have roughly a half hour. If the power goes out, they have to make a decision within a half hour because of water supply and heat in the wintertime, stuff like that, that they have to either make a decision whether we're going to cancel school, send them home or whatever. And if it's in the morning, they have to decide whether they're going to cancel the whole day because of the whole feeding lunch and running the kitchen and stuff, which they can't do. Why does that affect us as the town? Why am I here is because we just did a drill actually a month ago, and I just talked to Peter, I just talked to Rich tonight.
Oh, good.
And he's going to talk with you next week, going over pros and cons and what we can do and the benefits and all that stuff. And one of them was we need a second shelter in our town, because I guess one of the examples in this drill that they went through was that our shelter was not available, flooded. So, which is a very good reality, especially where it's located.
Right.
And the ability and the size of that shelter is also another question on how much and how many people and how many different kinds of people, being elderly or kids or people with animals, stuff like that. That's why the school, I think, is gonna be a huge benefit to us to look into putting a generator out there. Not only do we help the school in its functions when they're in session, but I think this is gonna be huge for the town because of its location, because of what it is, the size of it, the different rooms. It's all set up already. It's got new heat. I mean, it's got your full kitchen, refrigeration. It's got everything that we would need and more for a shelter. When we go into setting up a shelter, when some of our drills we go through, the different scenarios they throw at us are, okay, we've got some elderly people we have to put in spots. Okay, we got some people with children. And those two, unfortunately, when they're out of their normal house sitting, they don't mix. And when we're trying to do, and then there's people that, have animals. I am not leaving without my animal. Well, you need to leave and we need to bring your animal, so we need to accommodate that. So something like this with multiple rooms, big rooms, small rooms, I think is gonna be huge. John is actually gonna meet, the principal that is gonna meet with their, I think his name is Frank, to do their budget on this Wednesday. And he's gonna get the ball rolling on his side. But my thoughts are, can the town step up and start thinking on our side about doing this and putting it in at the school and doing a generator? Obviously, we need prices. I know we went through the whole deal here. I don't know if there's any grants out there that we can, I know you're crafty at looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, but there's a few that we could look at. I make no guarantees.
Right, yeah, obviously.
But we can see if Wyndham
How do we
could
designate
help us.
how does the school become a designated shelter? Is there a process to do that so that it
There's
becomes
a-
the official?
Yep. Yep, and I don't have the checklist in front of me. I should have gotten that for it. But there's certain things that it has to require. You have the generator. We can go through and get the rest of that list.
I actually was just at the Red Cross Shelter's fundamentals course last week, and so so the shelter doesn't explicitly have to be a Red Cross certified shelter. About 60% of the shelters in Vermont are. But even if you don't choose to be a Red Cross certified shelter, they have a very well-established and well-vetted program for the steps that need to be taken. And it's very clear and easy to follow, and very in-depth.
And we'd have to declare it a shelter in some way.
That's correct. You'd have to get permission from the new school district, get an MOU with them, and then the select board would also have to make a motion to declare that as an additional shelter in town.
And when Peter was talking to me about this earlier, he was suggesting that what the school was looking for was a kind of cost share with the town, that they weren't expecting the town to pay for all the cost of the school's generator.
Yes, and the more people I talk to and the more scenarios that I go through, I don't know how quick the school is going to be able to come up with the money. And it's going to benefit them to a portion, but like in their off season, when they're not even there, it's going to be a huge benefit to us no matter what. That's why I was thinking if the town could come up and do it and figure a way, grants or whatever, the money some way, and do this, I think it would be a huge plus. And also, when we put a generator there, it's going to be one more staple that holds that school in our town. With all the shifts going around, with all the schools and everything up in the air, I think that is settled to a point where we're going to keep what we got, but I think it would be terrible to lose that. So if we put a generator there, I think that's one more thing. I mean, we got a new heating system, whole new air handling system. John could tell you a list of upgrades they've done so far, but I think that would be a huge plus for us. It'd be terrible to lose it.
Are we looking to drive the entire school, electricity-wise, in a case of forget about an emergency?
Right.
Let's talk about what's John's expectation.
Well, that's what I had him priced out, he priced out just to get heat, lights, water.
Okay.
Necessities to keep the kids there, keep them safe, keep them sheltered in the spot. But if we do it as a shelter, I think we need to go that next step because the school's built in 3 different editions.
Right.
And in the second to third edition, I'm not sure which one, is the kitchen. we want to incorporate the kitchen if we're going to have a shelter. I think you're going to want that area to do your cooking, to have your refrigeration, so the stuff that's in there doesn't go bad. Or if we need to bring supplies in, we can keep them. And to add that to the cost, I think it was $29,000 for the generator with just heat, water, and electricity. But to add the kitchen, we had to. What I'm waiting for now is the price to combine 2 transfer switches, because the second one will heat up the part that feeds the kitchen.
Gotcha.
So whatever that additional cost is, which I can't imagine is too much, we should be able to do everything.
But you're probably, well,
Part of the
I don't
question
want-
is, what type of shelter do you want it to be? Do you want it to
Right.
be a day use warming or cooling shelter, or do you
Right.
want it to be a shelter where folks can overnight? And if it's overnight, then the second part of what Jared just talked about will be is required, is that you have to have a way to feed people.
Mhm.
If it's a day use shelter, you don't have to have access to refrigeration and things like that.
But if
me,
we're
it's
gonna do
also
all
a
this
benefit.
work, I mean, I'm a
To
Boy
this-
Scout, I like to be prepared. Let's go for the gusto. If we're gonna go for some money, let's go for all of it. And, I mean, Irene came through, we had a lot of issues, and a lot of people in Guilford said, nope, I'm staying here, I'm gonna tough it out. Sometimes they're not gonna be able to, they're gonna have to get out. And there was a lot of homes and everything that were displaced, and we needed a spot to put people. So, God forbid that happens again, but I wanna be ready for it, so.
Well, there'd be a
great
huge
fire station.
advantage for John if we had the bigger generator to run the kitchen while the
Absolutely.
kids are there, because then he
Yep.
could be self-sufficient
Yep.
for the kids, and they can keep them in school.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we got a plus because we got 3 buses sitting over there. We have a plus because if that's gonna be our shelter, they're doing the maintenance to it. They're doing the upkeep, keeping it clean, keeping everything ready and up and working. I mean, if it was to go down to the BBC, is that what it's called now?
BBCC.
That's it. If we go down there and consider that our shelter, I think we got some things we need to do. They got a lot of work, I think, still to go down there, which is still happening, still. And will it fit the amount of people? Do you have the compartments that you want to put those people in different, like your animals and you're older, you're younger, I mean, I think that's our best case scenario out there if we can make it work.
So it seems to me that the process would be that before we did anything, that we need to have that designated as a shelter. And then we'd need a proposal from the school
Yep.
that we could look at, and with
Yep.
at
Well,
least
you can't
3
actually
bids.
designate
You can't
it
until
as a
it's-
shelter
right.
until you have the,
Right.
Well, we could understand what the steps are
Right.
that we need to go
Yeah.
through to designate it as
Yep.
the primary shelter.
I don't know if our next chat should be with the school and see if everybody's on board on that side and tell them what our thinking is and go that direction. And then at the same time, be looking up prices and see what our generator installation would be.
so
Yeah.
one question that would come to mind for me is thinking about your whole Boy Scout comment. I'm
Mhm.
in the same boat as you, so thinking in the worst case scenario, if in the future we had the unfortunate situation in which we lost our school, which
Mhm.
everyone's hoping is not gonna happen, but what's gonna happen to that
Right.
generator if the town has paid for that generator? And
Exactly.
the town doesn't
Yeah,
take
that's the-
ownership of the school,
Mhm.
what happens then?
What happens to the school if it closes? I have no idea.
No, I'm not saying the school, but what happens to the
The generator.
generator?
Right.
Well, but
the-
the generator would be there if the school were already a shelter, so the town could still have that building as a shelter. couldn't
Well, the
they?
school owns the.
The school owns the building.
Yeah,
The
the
school
new
district.
school district owns that,
Oh, I see.
that building, and it's.
And so I'm just trying to plan for.
Yep.
No, you're right,
worst
that's,
case
I think,
scenario.
one of the bigger
Obviously,
questions.
we all
that would
hope it
come
won't
up.
happen, but we also all hope that Irene didn't hit us too.
Right. That's the same deal with the fire station.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, you could play that what if game. But I understand.
I'm not
you
trying to
have
play the what if
No,
game, I'm
I
sure
understand.
plan.
You have to play that what if game. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But that's something we need to bring up when we talk with the school and say,
Exactly.
hey, if that does happen, that closes, we're gonna take our generator. And we're gonna put it somewhere else.
So I think the next step is for the school committee to weigh in on
Yep.
on this. And then
And I don't know
report back
who
to
we
us.
talk to there. We can talk to John and see I don't know how their board is configured now.
Well, we can
Constructive.
probably start by talking to the two members who were elected to represent Guilford.
Yep.
And
Yep.
maybe sit down in a meeting with them and with John together
Yep,
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
and see from there. I think would probably
Sure.
be how we, because they would obviously represent the town's perspective,
Mhm.
what happens with the school.
right.
Now, I know you're concerned that this will take too long going through the school system. Yeah, has has any discussions been had in terms of sharing at some level?
Yes, I've talked to him about it. My only concern, and he doesn't even know that I've asked if we looking at doing the whole thing, is kind of a 50-50 deal, but then it gets a little, I don't know. I don't know how, if it might get messy down the road. If something like, say, that does close and you got a 50-50, then how do you take half a generator? Or how do you do something like that? So I don't know. That's where the smarter people
Do you
have
have
to
any
figure that
sense
out.
of the other school, in the school district that we're a part of,
Mhm.
of the other, 4 schools? Do you know who, any of them have generators?
Vernon and Brattleboro.
Norriston does not. And,
Nope.
Okay.
Doesn't Putney also have a generator?
I don't know if Putney
Putney-
does. I was told today
Putney
that.
Central.
Oh, maybe Central. I was told today Vernon and Brattleboro are the only other ones
Oh, shit, okay.
that had them. So
Any other
Interesting.
questions, comments?
Do those schools have generators because they're shelters, or just because they?
Brattleboro, yes, because they're like your reunification and stuff and then shelters, plus because probably the size, keeping those kids, probably just for that reason.
Well, they're also the designated regional shelter for southeastern Vermont.
Right.
That's where our habitants that needed a shelter when ours was flooded and this exercise went.
No, they didn't go there.
They didn't go?
Because it
No,
wasn't
Red
set up.
Cross never set it up.
Oh, that's right, we had problems getting
We
it
had
set
trouble.
up.
And
But
if
we
it's something
tried.
that magnitude, you guys gotta also think that they're gonna be busy too.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be full. They're not gonna have a whole nother town, 2,200 people headed that way too, that are gonna be able, so we're gonna have to kind of fend for ourselves.
No, I agree.
Yep.
We have to plan for that, for sure.
Well, it sounds like a really good idea, and I'm glad that you started our thinking toward it, especially as we're in budget season.
Oh, I didn't even know. No.
Thanks,
No,
Jared.
Jared, thank you
Fire
for
chief.
putting
Thank you.
the energy into
Let me know if
this
you
like
have
you did at the
questions
town.
and have things that I can help with, and
So one of those power walls, that wouldn't be...
big enough.
Right, okay.
No. And we've learned with other customers that you can't bank enough of them together to make it happen. So, yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately, it's too big of a service that you need to actually have a generator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Okay.
it, Jared, thanks for taking the time.
The next on our agenda, the next item is reschedule budget workshop, and I don't think that we need to do that in live television to do scheduling.
No, we can do it.
We can
We
just
can do that after our
Yep.
meeting? Okay. And then we have, I had a letter from Dana Berry, who is leading the charge for setting up a early childhood education establishment at the Delta campus under the auspices of CC4G. And what they're looking for is a letter of support from the select board for a grant that will be to the Make Way for Kids initiative. They're requesting $25,000 in staff training funds and $25,000 prior to the arrival for startup costs. So that's $50,000. That's a grant that they're looking for. They would like us to write a letter in support of that grant proposal. Her letter to me has 3 points. I can read them if you want to.
Please.
Of what the support letter should say. The letter of support is to point out at least 3 points and any other support you think pertinent. 1, the Guilford Township has no early childhood education program to serve its under-school age children. Thus, this project begins to address this ongoing issue that was part of the last town's plan and will continue to be addressed. Number 2, such a comprehensive year-round program will help address the need the community has to to help our young families maintain and balance childcare workforce balance. And 3, the Select Board supports the efforts and expertise of CC4G in this endeavor and recognizes the excellent reputation CC4G has in regard to the direct delivery of services to young children and our Guilford families, as demonstrated during the tenure of the Promise Community Grant that ran from September 17th to December 18th. And under that auspices of that grant, the CC4G was doing programming down at Playscape, parent trainings, and a whole
And open
variety.
gym, they've been collaborating with a lot of.
So they have done a lot of programming. I've worked as a consultant for CC4G. I actually did a feasibility study of the need for this early education program in the town of Guilford, and by interviewing a number of residents, and overwhelmingly, it was the need for it was affirmed, particularly among our younger population who have young children, and it's also a way, of course, to attract a young population and a young workforce to our town. If our town has a place where a quality early childhood education venue. So I'm all in favor of writing this letter of support.
Yes, I mean, and the opportunity to have it be on the Delta campus is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's very charitable of Robert.
Well, I should move that we direct Peter to write a letter of support.
Sure.
Yep. And
Is
do
the
I?
facility actually in Brattleboro or Guilford?
It's
Like-
in Brattleboro, but it's right on the edge.
Yeah.
But if it is established, it will be established with the understanding, not only the understanding, but the demand that there's a percentage, that the first choice goes to Guilford children and the children of Delta employees.
And Peter did a good job capturing, this was my same question, and I'm sure Dana, while it's not stipulated here, it is something I think that should be maybe a part of it, but you captured very well Dana's conversation, in the minutes, I believe, after she presented this. And I just think it's really important to keep that in the forefront
She writes,
of what we are, agreeing, what we are supporting. It is for the Guilford kid aspect of that, in my opinion.
which she writes in her email, the charge is to provide Guilford families and Delta campus employees' families with first pick for space, and then open it up to the larger community.
Right, but there was also a percentage that I thought was going toward the
Yeah, she
Guilford.
did, in her discussion with
Yeah.
you, she did state that they were going, once they got approval to do it,
Right.
they would then set that percentage. But I think she was hoping it was going to be something like 60%. We can look back at the
Yeah, I
minutes.
don't remember, but I just want to keep us focused on that, and I'm sure Dana is focused on it, but.
So do I have a motion
Yes.
to write this
I need a
letter of support? I
second.
need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Anyone
Pe-
opposed?
Any opposed? I didn't think so.
And we should commend Dana.
Yes,
on
Dana's
this.
worked hard.
Dana, yes, we commend Dana for leading the charge on this
Well, and
initiative.
also remember how much time they spent looking for places
location.
in Guilford.
It's
so
2 years.
this is- Yeah, of deep frustration.
Peter, can you draft it, and then I'll take a look at it if anybody else wants to, but I'd like to see it before it goes out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is Rolf
And Shiloh.
and Charlotte.
Shiloh.
Shiloh, sorry Shiloh.
No, it's fine.
I'll never do
My
it
name's
again.
Shiloh. I'm used to everybody messing up my name my whole entire life, don't worry.
Please introduce yourself and then let us know what you're talking about.
Sure, thank you. So, my name is Rolf Parker. Humorously, I'll say that today my organization went through a name change, so I'm no longer coming to you as a representative of Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. I'm now coming to you as a representative of Building a Positive Community. You note that the acronym still lines up. Almost everybody calls us BAPC anyways. But, so,
Good name change.
yeah, for a whole bunch of reasons. So last time that I was here, I'm going to try to hit my points and be quick.
We like that.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best. Last time, however, because we were trying to do things quickly, we actually, there was some confusion and we were rushing through. And specifically, when I was here previously, we were talking about the 3-4-50 program.
Right. Yep.
And we wanted to actually, and we still do, and still will, promote Guilford as being one of the first line-ons and recognizing all the great work that you've done. But on the last page, or the last, column, it says, we were rushing, restrict the sale of tobacco near schools, childcare centers, and playgrounds, or create tobacco-free or smoke-free shopping areas. And that's, this doesn't qualify as a, shopping area, so, no. But Shia will explain that there are other customizable, there are other ways to achieve still getting that Gold Star status, but I want to just very briefly talk about why there's such a push for that type of thing. This is an NPR article about Dollar Shopper, and the title is How Dollar Shopper is Transforming Rural America. And they try to land in Townsend. And they're not just sellers of tobacco, they are heavy marketers. They call it coconut smoke.
Excuse me, what was it?
They call it a Coke and a smoke. It's their
Coconut smoke.
Coke.
In other words, you come in for a
No, I
soda.
got it.
Yeah. But they also put up on their windows, like if you go to West Brattleboro, you see a WIC sign, giant WIC outdoor, and then right next to it, the giant Philip Morris poster. And the way it works is if you're willing to do this in your contract, they'll give you all kinds of incentives. You can purchase products for much less, you can, all these types of things, if you're willing to put up advertising in a very aggressive manner and make these type of things. So that's why that's on there as an additional thing. And one option, we came here, Cassandra and I, about a year ago, and we distributed these primer for planning. One option is to just write in for the benefit. Previously, people were talking about being Boy Scouts and being prepared, but because of this type of threat, as I see it, if you have a limit on how many retailers or the proximity to schools, because the CDC has done studies and found that tobacco retailers and these types of outfits tend to land closer to impoverished areas and not infrequently near schools because their older customers are dying. And as you may know, Altria invested $16 billion into Juul products. They are totally the same beast. So that's why we raise that as something that we ask you to consider when you're thinking about planning. And on this document, I've highlighted different towns, what different towns have done along these lines. It's down here, but I'm just giving that to you because I know I've got a very small amount of time. So I'll just, these have been done within the state of Vermont.
So specific 175 feet. I mean, so that's what I was going to ask is what are the stipulations you're looking for in terms of the school?
Well, so you could set that. I'm not saying exactly what you need to do, but
other towns,
they've done things like that.
Right. No.
Some towns have set also like not near the library or
sure
things like that, but especially places where children are congregating because they target children. And online, the way they do it. Well, we won't even get into there. Never mind. Sorry, that's nothing to do with tonight.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother beast.
So let me just understand.
Yes.
So our town, which has one store, which is not near anything, not near any child-centered something.
And they're fantastic. We gave them a silver star the way they handle their tobacco.
But because we don't have this in a plan, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, next month.
Right. But that's what you're bringing to our attention, that this wasn't, we missed this when we ran through it the first time.
Right.
We have to have that better addressed at some level.
That would be, that's where we're
we have no zoning in this town,
No.
so are you suggesting that in our town plan?
Exactly.
As part of the wellness, or if there
Totally.
is such a
Yes.
section, we we have a kind of declaration of intention. you know.
Exactly, and that's why when we distribute these before, they have other examples in here. This was produced by the Wyndham Regional Commission,
Gotcha.
working with us, so
I see.
that's
No, I
why.
think
I don't know
that's
if you need
very-
more copies, obviously I'm prepared, if you do.
Well, I'll
You can
take
leave
some.
some, we are running low out front.
So we'll definitely take that under consideration
Great, thank
and bring it to the attention of the planning commission working on the town plan, the new town plan.
Excellent, thank
And
you.
then also, so Shiloh Foss from Vermont Department of Health, I do the chronic disease work over there. Alicia was here last time and she had
Oh, yeah.
tracked off some of the strategies that you're currently implementing on the bronze, silver, and gold level for your town. And there had been kind of lagging one on the gold level. However, you had an extra silver level strategy that you were implementing. So we reached out to central office to see if we could modify the sign-on and kind of scooch one over from the silver level into gold. So great news, you're gold level, so like high five.
So what did you scooch?
So, I mean, you can do any of
Scooching is a healthy activity.
If done with enough vigor.
Yeah. So we just, any of them can be moved over, to be completely honest. But we reached out to them, they're like, yeah, no problem, as long as we just put on the back. I know Alicia had talked about doing the bike racks as part of the 3-4-50, not 3-4-50, the RISE grant money.
Well, so I did apply for the grant.
Okay.
The program ran out of funding for this round.
But the fiscal year
But-
started again.
It starts at the end of this week, on the 27th is when the fiscal year
Mhm.
starts. And I was told that our grant is at the top of the list.
It
It's, will be tentatively approved.
Mhm.
We have to wait for the fiscal year to start to find that out, but it's positive.
But the
Did-
good thing, what?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. The good thing is that the strategies that are being implemented, they don't have to be current necessarily. You can have a goal that you're setting for yourself within the next 12 months that you plan to complete. So if you have that marked out for the bronze level, for example. So you're still gold level because you're planning to do it in the next 12 months, and you are at the top of the list, so.
Is there a designation that we can, that's templated that we can use to advertise the fact that we're at the gold level, that we can put on our website, for instance? That
Yeah.
Guilford is
3-4-50 and Rise Vermont, partnering with Standing for Health and Wellness.
Uh-huh.
Right now, they're in the middle of kind of collaborating to see if they're going to change the messaging for 3-4-50. And
That would be good.
and Rise, maybe if we can kind of combine those together. But even if not, we can do some sort of like logo that you can put on your site, and also you'll be placed as a 3-4-50 partner on our site, and then I believe Rise Vermont does some sort of recognition for it as
Yeah, we
well.
would definitely
So-
like, I think.
Yeah,
that would be
definitely.
good to
Doesn't
have
the
on
state
our
even
website.
have like champions, like the highlighted champion page?
They do, so
Yeah.
on the health department website, if you go onto the chronic disease portion, under 3-4-50, they have all the different partners and sign-ons, and they list them within which category, that they're like bronze, silver, or gold, or if the commitment letter, so definitely will be listed on there right away too.
Right.
And you'll get a cool little plaque thing too.
So where can we get that language that we would use to
Um,
describe our status?
So what I can do is I can reach out to Alicia tomorrow and also to central office to see
Right.
what the status is with that, and we can give you whatever logo is current.
Mhm.
And then we can also do a finalized version of the 3-4-50 sign-on and send it in right away, so you can be put on our website
Right,
as
and
well.
you have Peter's email, I believe.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I personally, I wasn't here at the last meeting that you were at. I was at a conference, but I appreciate the positive messaging that you're putting out, because when I first heard about the 3-4-50, I had a real pang because people get terrible diseases and die of them even without any bad habits.
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah.
I just, I have a concern about that. And so I'm happy to think about the positives, that our town wants to do all that we can for the well-being of all of our people. But,
I think it's just good to raise awareness on those 3 behaviors and how they can impact. It's not necessarily saying that all of those 4 chronic diseases are from behavior. Sometimes there's genetic, predisposition and whatnot, but behavior does play a large part, and it's also one of the largest components to chronic disease as well, especially in today's society too. So whatever the towns, I think it's really great to highlight the things that the town is
things we
doing
can
towards
do.
that,
Yeah, totally.
right? So you're standing to say that we want our community to be healthy, not saying necessarily that all four of the chronic diseases are caused by lack of taking care of yourself or anything like that. It's just that I think that more, instead of that negative impact with it, I think it's really just highlighting what you guys are doing really great and how you care about your town, and thinking of that positive impact, like what are we doing great, assessing and seeing like what are more strategies that we can implement in the future to kind of really strengthen the great things that we have going on so
And
far.
really-
So, but I get that, I've heard that before. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, and really what we're excited about is using it as a model for other towns. And really that's what we can leverage it for, even benefit for more people than just who live in Guilford,
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for
Well,
coming
thank you
back.
for coming again.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was
Thanks for
enlightening.
having us.
Thank you.
I'm kind of
And
doing
we'll-
your scooching work.
Yeah, and we'll look
Thank you
forward
for
to having the logo and some language that we can use to
Did you
advertise
leave
our
this back?
status.
I do not, I
I'll
was
send it
very
out
grateful.
tomorrow. I'll talk to
Thank you.
Adrian.
Thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
All right, moving right along, the Planning Commission Liaison. Where's that music coming?
Somebody's celebrating.
It's my new cell phone.
Oh,
I thought maybe that's what that was.
I thought
it's a melodious.
we had a new phone in the office.
I thought it was
ring.
your recessional.
Trying to start meditating.
That's it, my alarm, no more than that
Right.
amount of time. All right, great,
Do you want to
thank
speak to
you.
that, Joe?
Sure, if you want me to. So there was a little bit of confusion as to who was the planning commission liaison from the
Oh, yeah.
select board. It could be interpreted a variety. My interpretation and understanding from the conversation that we had a month and a half ago was that Zahn was going to do so. I don't know what you remembered from that discussion, or?
I remembered, I wasn't sure if it was the Guilford Planning Commission or the Wyndham Regional Planning
No, it's
Commission.
our planning commission, it's
Yeah.
not the Wyndham Regional.
Yeah.
And so, the reason it came up is because last week I went to the planning commission's monthly meeting, and they asked who their new liaison was. And so I thought it was Zahn.
And it's you, right?
And there was
I'm happy to do it.
a little
Oh, great.
confusion, and so I think we have it sorted out.
Yes.
now.
So can I
Because
ask for-
Michael had also been contacted by someone from the planning commission thinking it was him, when he's already the liaison for the
The
Conservation
Conservation.
Commission.
So it's Zahn.
It is.
So can we just clarify that being the liaison, does that mean that the liaison goes to all of their meetings?
No.
Or is that the expectation, or is the expectation that?
I'm curious, you said no.
No, I mean, the expectation is that you will, so all of our commissions, aside from the cemetery commission, but they meet monthly. Cemetery commissioner chair,
Seasonally,
they
yeah.
meet seasonally. But the other commissions generally try to meet monthly. But the expectations are that you have other things going on in your life. And so if you can't make a meeting, say in November, you can't make a meeting. You have family, you have work, you have whatever it is that you have. If you could at least make it to every other one, that's really appreciated, so you can
Or
know.
check in.
Or check
at
in.
least.
And
You
that the
send them an
commission
email.
knows that you're the link to, if they have an issue or
Yeah.
a question or a statement, that you're the link to the select board.
So I mean, all of the commissions are responsible to the select board, so it's good to know what they're working on. And so you can, as a liaison, you can communicate the select board goals and ideas and plans that relate to that specific commission. And then you can come back and share with the select board what they're working on, any updates, and be a link between the two groups.
So thank you very much, Zahn, we appreciate that. And-
Sure.
And the planning commission really could use that support. I mean, clearly, the conservation commission, they're really highly active, and the rec commission, I try to go to all the rec commission meetings just because they're involved in so many different things, and just being another person with another pair of hands is helpful to them, even though they're all very capable. But the planning commission has a huge mandate, and just.
I think you'd be very helpful to them.
I do too.
With your experience and background.
Exactly.
So we very much appreciate that. Moving
Okay.
right along, the town administrator position, Peter and I worked out a schedule for that.
Yeah.
And,
Why don't you just keep talking
Schedule.
about it?
well, the
You mean
schedule,
to fold
I'm going to say.
Are you?
Yes. So Peter, by Wednesday next, we'll have a draft of the rewritten position description, which takes into account that he's the emergency management director and that.
And other responsibilities.
And other responsibilities. So that, and then he's going to redline it in the current position description. I'm going to look it over, and then we're going to bring those, I think it's you and.
Yep, it's Richard, Michael, and Sheila.
And Sheila together to approve the new language, if we do approve it. And that will take into account also that, is it Hannah? I forgot.
Marta.
Marta will be taking up, and we've had a discussion with, Peter has had a discussion with Penny about Marta's time and her willingness to take on additional hours that would be flaked off from Peter's responsibility.
Because
So
of
that's
other
how-
things he's taking on.
Because of the other things he's taking on.
Instead of hiring an additional person, because full-time hours for the town clerk and town treasurer positions are 30 hours a week, which is what, as an assistant treasurer, that's what Marta works. So she has the flexibility to work more. Penny is supportive of it. And she and I did have a discussion with Marta, and Marta would be interested. I think it would also be beneficial to help keep Marta here. I think she's working out very well. I think, giving her additional hours for additional pay would be definitely a benefit to the town.
Great. So it's you, Sheila, and I,
Michael.
and Michael, okay. So on Thursday, Michael, you'll get the draft, and then I'll be looking to schedule a time that we can discuss it.
What are some of the other duties you're planning to include in this draft? I know you're taking on other things, but just remind me.
Yeah, there've been a number of things that I've added on, or you guys have added on for me, I should say. One of the big ones is a lot more of the grant work.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's one of the big ones.
And what about, I don't know whether there's been any shift in your relationship to the website.
There has, I've taken on, at your request,
Yes,
I've
that's
taken
what I'm
on
saying.
most of the responsibility for the new website.
For updating it. and-
Where the town clerk had been doing that previously, and she indicated that she wanted to absolve her and her staff of that responsibility. So those are two of the big things that I've taken on. There's a few other things that.
So we'll have a chance to review
Okay.
the new responsibility, the new emergency management responsibilities, and the lessening of other responsibilities. Thank you very much. Okay, on to the warrants.
I will move to pay the following warrants: payroll week ending 11/17/19 for $6,699.37. Payroll week ending 11/24/19 for $13,340.68. Expense warrant number 2010 for $468,303.19. And expense warrant number FW10 for $24.50, for a grand total of $488,367.74.
Second.
You want to
Discussion.
discuss?
Thank you. I would like to discuss a few things. Out of expense warrant number 2010 of the 468,000, I want to break that down a little bit. We are at the approval at our town meeting. The Guilford Volunteer Fire Department piece of that is $230,063. We also paid a number of our service organizations, a majority, all of them, on this warrant.
Right.
Rescue alone was almost $49,928, and the balance of the service organizations was $23,641. And we also were able to move in all the completed work on Carpenter Hill's culvert work, which came in at $121,400, which we had already planned for.
Right.
So those were the big pieces of that.
Thank you, Gordon. Any further discussion?
I do have, I just so I learn, I just need to understand why payroll is
I was just going to
twice
make a
as
comment
much. Yeah,
on
thank
that.
you.
So the main reason why it's twice as much, one is we had our first day of snow for overtime for the road crew. So that's one. And then the select board received your select board stipends for the year.
That was going to be my guess.
Yep, so that's the two reasons why that is substantially higher.
Thank you, Peter, for
Thank you, Peter.
clarifying that, and
Any
good
further?
questions on.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And now, any communications, Peter?
Yeah, I've got three that could potentially be lengthy, and we're going to make them short.
Yes, that's a good plan.
The select board has received a letter from a resident. Just the summary of the letter is this individual was complaining after quite a long time of owning property in Guilford that their tax payment was 2 days late, and that for their tax payment they had a penalty of $302.99. And this individual did not feel that that was warranted. Our town clerk noted that the penalty applies to all people, including select board members, if you pay your taxes late. And the state is who sets the penalty amount. It is not the town. And so...
Does an official complaint have to come before the Civil Board of Authority, or?
If this individual wished to make one, but this individual has not stated that they wish to bring it to the BCA. They just wanted the select board to know of their displeasure.
Thank you.
The other two...
Just to clarify, there would be nothing that this group could do.
Simply communication
State.
letting you know that they felt that this was unfair for only 2 days tardiness. And that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Sometimes it might be 12 days tardiness or 6 months. It's all about tardiness. Right?
But tardy is tardy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We did receive, I don't know how you got this, and I didn't get it, but we received notification of a Act 250 application for lined well drilling. I don't know the details of what they are intending to do, but...
I looked in it was an email chain. I just printed out that page of it because I thought that was the relevant page.
It is a relevant page.
But it did not explain what the 250 permit is for.
And this is simply a notification process, just to let the select board know and let the town know that somebody is obviously going to be doing a substantial amount of work on a piece of property they own that needs an Act 250 review.
And that
What's the date of that?
11/12/2019.
And did it say when the work was going to be done?
Nope.
No.
It doesn't, this is just the notice of application filing.
Yeah, there's nothing we do about it. I was just curious.
No,
Thank you.
And then, on Friday, and our office is closed, so I didn't get it, but on Friday I received a letter of response regarding the letter that I sent on behalf of the select board as a result of the road safety audit. So if you remember, I sent this letter to this VTrans Operations and Safety Bureau, their traffic operations engineer.
Oh, yes.
So they have met and reviewed the request of the select board. So one of the requests we made to them was to create a no parking zone opposite the Guilford Country Store. In front of the Guilford Country Store, there is already a no parking zone. To make one opposite of that in front of Richmond's Auto. Their recommendation is to not do that. So they gave an explanation for that, saying that there's plenty of room for parking there as long as there's no parking in the lane of travel, which occasionally happens. So their recommendation is that V-Trans will put up signs noting that it is illegal to park in the lane of travel. The second point that was requested of them specifically was to reduce the speed limit through the village from 35 to 30 miles an hour. They will also not approve this because V-Trans recently concluded a speed limit study in the section between Brattleboro and the village, and they actually found that an increase in the from Paul's Road to Brattleboro, so above the section that you requested, it's actually warranted to increase the speed limit by 5 miles an hour. And it's a very long explanation. I won't go into the details. I can share with you later if you wish to know. They actually feel it would actually reduce accidents, and will actually, they explain that it will, data has shown that where you have a consistency in speed limits, that actually when people get to the village, they will actually slow down, because the speed limit currently is 35 for the entire length. And so people just keep driving their 45 miles an hour all the way through the village. Whereas if there's a consistent speed limit from Brattleboro to Guilford, it will help improve that.
So a couple of signs saying speed limit change.
Yes.
And everybody got this letter,
I saw it.
I said we all saw the letter, yeah. So is there action?
And we also need to, it's partly to inform the public.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, no, it's very important.
so there are no actions for you to take. They will be, so their recommendations to the traffic committee is to say no to both of your requests. The only action would be if you disagree with that and you have additional information you want to present to the committee, either I or one of the select board members are invited to their public meeting on December 11th at 1 p.m. at the V-Trans building. So we can give testimony if you wish to dispute this recommendation.
Well, so I don't even, being new again, I don't even know what was the process quickly to actually request a no parking space right there in front of the store?
We went through the road safety audit, which involved 8 members from a variety of different branches of V-Trans, as well as Wyndham Regional Commission, and then several members from the town, myself, Dan, 2 select board members, and they have this entire process they go through.
I see.
They did one in Guilford Center Village and one in Algiers Village at the intersection of Route 5. And that process brings about a number of recommendations. There was also public input into this.
And a big part of this is that we're having some, strong speeding, particularly here in the village, as well as over in Algiers.
Yeah.
So the residents that have raised this issue through the select board, and this has been part of the follow-up on trying
And there
to
are
address it.
documents, can you get him the audit and?
Yeah, it's probably.
I just didn't know where it came from.
but
But it came first.
that's
There's
kind of
written
what was
material
driving
on
it.
it, which will inform you of the whole process.
And so, for example, the no parking area, we have had quite a number of residents complain that when they are facing east on Guilford Center Road, waiting to make a northbound turn onto Route 5 heading to Brattleboro, if any large delivery truck or vans, you can't see.
Right.
And that's because the large trucks often park in the lane of travel on that section.
Yeah, but that's the part I didn't understand of that, because there really isn't a parking area where we were talking about. That is the lane of travel, where the line is and where Doug's, posts are. There's not enough to park a vehicle there, so I'm not sure they understood that.
There's not enough to park a big vehicle, like you park a car.
They looked at it. We went with them.
We were there.
Yeah.
They were. I mean, they did take photographs. So
Well, they have photographs, but there's no parking area there if you're not in the lane of travel.
Correct, technically, and that's why they feel that's the best option. Again, I mean,
The best option is to leave it as is.
leave it as is, but to add the signs stating
It's no parking in the
no
lane of
parking in
travel.
lane of travel.
Which means park here.
Exactly, I mean, I don't get it.
That's why
It's.
So do you want to go to the meeting?
No, I can't afford to go to Barry on the 11th.
Do you want us to send our town administrator?
I don't know, I mean, I don't know, I think we had to talk about it.
I park there. It's possible to park there without being in the lane of traffic.
Can I see that for a second?
You may.
I just
So-
wanted to-
I mean, so
Or
our
maybe
next
a car
select
can
board
park
meeting is
there.
only
Yeah.
2 days prior to that meeting. And it would be friendly of us if we let them know that, because they can only accommodate 25 people in that meeting room. So if you wish me to go, I think you should decide that tonight, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't know, what do other people feel?
But we need to present,
Whether it's Peter or one of
I'm
us.
happy to take their recommendation in that letter.
if you do send me, I think it would be prudent for me to go with additional documentation.
Well, that's what
supporting your-
I don't know what
your
else
beliefs.
we could document that is gonna turn this decision.
I mean, it's
Over.
you, the civilian.
I understand,
you
that's
know,
what,
so
I
in-
agree,
in-
I'm not
yeah.
disagreeing. I'm just
They're
having,
road safety experts.
I think we've done everything on, as a municipality of a small town that we can in that area with trying to raise the awareness with the state of Vermont, who, controls the road. So, am I wrong?
No, I mean, the only other option
I don't
would
know
be.
what else we could do.
Well, yes, you do, actually. The only other option would be for the select board to request the V-Trans and the state to grant the town ownership of that section of the road.
Right.
And that way you could post,
Yes, I understand that, Peter, but that's an unrealistic discussion, I think, for,
I would
one,
agree-
does
I
the
would
town
agree
want to
with-
own it? And two, from the earlier conversations I heard about, that stretch of road, the state is very happy to control. When we were talking about the bridge, I mean, there was a whole bunch of issues. So
Yeah.
to say that the town
but-
could take, I
So
don't.
can I just
I'm just saying it's
I'd
an
like to
option.
focus
It's
on-
unrealistic.
I'm
Can
sorry.
I'd like to focus the discussion.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree.
the point is, do you want to go to the meeting or have Peter go to the
Right,
meeting and contest what this recommendation is? And I would suggest if you're going to contest it, you should have evidence
Yeah,
of
I
what you're
agree.
contesting.
I agree.
Or do we
So-
not want to?
So the only way to contest it is to go to the meeting.
At this point, yes.
Okay,
And
I think we
I
have to
don't know
put it
what
off
you
for another
contest.
time.
And bring documentation
Yeah, and bring
of your
Unfortunately, I
argument.
agree with you, Gordon.
Yeah,
I don't.
I was just wanted to have a conversation about.
So I think that the
Richard's
issue
scope.
is that we are not going to the meeting and that the recommendation stands. Thank you.
And, I mean, there is a change that they recommended, and we can monitor the result of that change.
Yes.
I
exactly,
think
so there's
that's a
another
very
option
good-
That's
for
good.
down the road.
Excellent.
Very valid point.
Very valid point. Excellent.
Before we close, there was something that I wanted to introduce as a routine, as evidence, no, as a routine for our meetings, which is to look at the action
I
summary.
loved it, and I meant to make a comment about it, so I wish I had before you
Well,
had a chance to bring it up.
And that reason that I've asked
Well
for it to
done.
be there is so that we can review it
Good.
and to see what we've done.
Right, very
And
good.
so when we look at, so I think that that's how it would be the finale of all of our meetings.
Excellent.
But we know so post-tax
So,
fund, the transfers.
Action steps is
Actions.
what you're talking
Yes,
about for our audience.
And the action steps appear for our audience and for our select board in the draft minutes, and we're looking at the minutes of November 11th, 2019.
Yeah, and just for clarification, all of these action steps have always been in the minutes, but these are summarized in one section so you can review all
Right,
the
that's
actions
the
that were
way
taken. So
I
some of the,
like the way it's done here.
some of the actions are actions that you, the select board, have taken, others are actions that you have directed me to take. So
Yep.
there's different types of actions outlined here.
So let's just check off, post-tax fund transfers were approved,
Yep.
that's an action that we did. Peter, to itemize transfer line items in the future, that's a future action.
That's correct, and I've given myself a memo to do that next year.
Excellent. We agreed to stay in the opioid class action suit with the state, that was the letter that we talked about. And the add terms and positions up for election in minutes and on the website, and I saw them on the website.
Yep, I did that the
Fantastic.
day after.
Excellent.
And
And
just a quick note, a resident sent me an email to note that there was a minor error in that, and I corrected that error today.
Thank
and
you.
for the term of one of the positions that is up.
All right. And then Veranda and Zahn are working with Peter on redrafting vacation section of personnel policy. Where are we on that?
Well, due to some other events last week that involved me, I was not able to get to that last week, so that's on the list. Given we have a holiday this week and other things, I hope to get to it, but I don't want to make any promises.
Okay,
Well,
so
I
that
feel
goes
it's-
on the actions of these minutes then, right? The current minutes.
It's a carryover.
It will be a carryover, but I don't
But it
think
has
the
to appear in the
urgency
minutes,
is
yeah.
as urgent as it was a week and a half ago, whatever it was.
Because of
2 weeks ago.
conversations and so forth, yeah.
Yes,
So,
Right.
yeah, so, but still, it does need to move over.
Yes,
it needs to move over.
It does need to be dealt
Peter
with,
will-
but it's not as urgent.
Right.
Continue.
But it has
drive
to
it.
appear in the minutes. Excellent. And the warrants were approved. So now, oh, yes,
I do
please.
have one question. So, for instance, broadband, there was a meeting. I
Yes.
could possibly report on that. I don't know, do I need to talk to Peter to put it on the agenda if I wanted to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Or if,
So the way that works is in brief, the select board chair is the one that has the responsibility of dictating the agenda for the select board as a whole. All of the other select.
Dictating.
Has the responsibility, I thought was a very nice way to put that, Peter.
All the other select board members can make suggestions, but it is up to the chair that has
Bizarre.
Thank you, Veranda, that's where I was going, but I didn't want to say that.
that. So if you have a topic you would like addressed, what you do is you send it to me, I will add it to the list, and when I have my weekly meeting with
It will
Sir
be
Chair,
considered.
it will be considered. I have yet to see something that is not accepted for the agenda.
well, yeah.
I would be
I've
very
got-
interested
I've got
in
to
that.
start learning about, did you go to that conversation? There was
For broadband?
Yeah.
Yeah. it was-
You were, I mean,
Yeah,
the phone conversation? No, the phone
Oh, no.
conversation, no. Okay. I don't
So
know.
anyway, you're going to suggest to Peter that it goes on the agenda?
Well, maybe, I have to.
At some point?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great.
yeah, So we can hear more
But
about
that's
it.
the process.
All
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn
I
this
would love
distinguished
to
group?
make the motion to adjourn our meeting this evening.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
And is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Hurrah!
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And tell the town
The
of
motion is
Guilford
carried.
to have a lovely Thanksgiving.
And everyone,
Yes.
we all wish you from the select board to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bon appetit.